Ciao e bentornati! Welcome back to PILLOLE D'ITALIANO. Today's episode, episode 36, is all about di, the nice preposition that follows lots of verbs. So someone requested that I made a video about the preposition di when it follows verbs and which verbs exactly are followed by that preposition, because in the past I made an episode about verbs followed by the preposition a. And if you by any chance missed it, here is the link, you can catch up on it. So to be honest with you, I was a bit scared about making this episode. And I'll tell you why. I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed in any way. Contrary to the preposition a, where I was able to keep the episode short and sweet, with the preposition di, there are way more verbs that are followed by that preposition. So I had to trim the fat and I had to think for a couple of weeks about how to shape the episode and how to select the verbs that are most important, most commonly used, the essential ones to present to you today. I don't want to give you an incomplete list of verbs though, so at the end of the episode, if you stick through it, you will find a honorable mention of all the others that I'm not going to use here to create examples. So that at the end of the episode you will have all the verbs, all the Italian verbs that are followed by this preposition di. What I want to start with today are three verbs that are very, very commonly used in Italian. I call them the PSP. So pensare, sperare, parlare. All of them are followed by the preposition di. Pensare di fare qualcosa, to think about doing something. Sperare di poter fare qualcosa, to hope of being able to do something. And parlare di fare qualcosa, to talk about doing something. So let me give you a bit of a longer sentence this time around to try and use them all. I could say, parli di andare in Thailandia da anni. Pensavi di farlo a giugno e adesso speri di poter prenotare un volo tra 6 mesi. Okay, I'm just going to repeat this long sentence. Parli di andare in Thailandia da anni. You talk about going to Thailand for years. That's the Italian way of saying you've been talking about it for years, but we use the present. Parli di andare in Thailandia da anni. Pensavi di andarci a giugno. Pensavi di andarci a giugno. So you thought about going there, andarci, a giugno, in June. Well, do I have to explain why that was not possible? Because of COVID. So now, speri di prenotare, you hope of booking un volo, a flight, tra 6 mesi, in 6 months, tra 6 mesi. So this is a very long example. I just tried to use the PSP verbs, so pensare, sperare, and parlare, all together, kind of in the same scenario. They're all followed by di. Now we have the verbs decidere, rischiare, and cercare di. Careful with this last one, cercare di has different meaning compared to cercare by itself. Because cercare by itself, it means to look for, but cercare di is to try. So once more, decidere, to decide, rischiare, to risk, and cercare di, to try. Let's try and use them. Cerchiamo di usarli. Let's try and use them in examples and short sentences. So let's talk again about the same person who wanted to go to Thailand. I could say, hai deciso di aspettare. Hai deciso, this is the past of decidere. Hai deciso di aspettare, you decided to wait, perché non vuoi rischiare di ammalarti. Perché non vuoi rischiare, because you don't want to risk, di ammalarti, to get sick. Cercherai di non annoiarti a casa. Cercherai, future of cercare, cercare di actually, cercherai di, you will try, non annoiarti, you will try not to get bored. Cercherai di non annoiarti a casa, at home. Okay, now let's have a look at the verbs chiedere and promettere. Chiedere means to ask and promettere to promise. I could use them back to back in a sentence such as ho chiesto a Maria di aiutarmi. Ho chiesto a Maria di aiutarmi. You see how I asked Maria to help me. The di comes a bit further into the sentence than you might expect it, because it's chiedere di, but chiedere a qualcuno di fare qualcosa. So you're asking to someone, a qualcuno, to do something, di fare qualcosa. Ho chiesto a Maria di aiutarmi. I asked Maria to help me. Lei ha promesso di farlo domani. Lei ha promesso, she promised, ha promesso, the past of promettere, ha promesso di farlo domani. She promised to do it tomorrow. Do what? To help me. So I'm using chiedere di and promettere di in two sentences back to back. Ho chiesto a Maria di aiutarmi. Lei ha promesso di farlo domani. Now let's move on to two verbs that might be kind of similar, at least to English speakers. Finire and smettere. Finire di and smettere di. Finire means to finish and smettere to stop. But to stop doing an activity, to cease it for good. So it's a bit different from finire. For example, let's take the classic example of smettere di fumare, to stop smoking for good, right? If I say voglio smettere di fumare, it means I want to stop smoking, as I said, for good. Voglio finire di fumare la sigaretta means I want to finish smoking the cigarette, but it's not going to be my last one. I just want to finish this activity. So you see how finire and smettere do not really have the same meaning. They're both, though, followed by the preposition di. Smettere di and smettere di fumare, and finire di fumare in this case. Now we can move on to two more couples of verbs that are actually antonyms. It means that they mean the opposite. The first couple is accettare and rifiutare. Accettare, very similar to English, accept. Accettare is to accept. Rifiutare is to refuse, to turn down an offer, for example. They're both followed by di, surprise. So I could say ha accettato di farlo, she accepted or he accepted to do it, because we don't really know which subject we're using, he or she. The context will tell us. But let's talk again about that Maria, right? Maria accepted to help me because I asked her before. Ha accettato di farlo, she accepted to do it. Or ha rifiutato di farlo, she refused to do it. The second couple of antonyms, those two verbs with opposite meanings, is ricordarsi di and dimenticarsi di. Ricordarsi means to remember, and dimenticarsi, of course, to forget. So when those are two reflexive verbs. I don't know how many of you are aware of how to conjugate reflexive verbs. So I'm just going to go ahead as if you knew, and then maybe you can let me know in the comment section below if I need to create a separate episode about how to conjugate reflexive verbs, because I don't want to open that can of worm right now. So ricordarsi di and dimenticarsi di are both reflexive. I could say mi sono ricordata di comprare il latte, ma mi sono dimenticata di comprare la carta igienica. Mi sono ricordata, I remembered, mi sono ricordata di, actually. I remember to comprare il latte, to buy milk, the milk, ma mi sono dimenticata, but I forgot, mi sono dimenticata di comprare, once more, I forgot to buy, la carta igienica, toilet paper. Well, this is where I want to leave you today. As I said before, I don't want this episode to be overwhelming and super long. The verbs that I introduced so far are very, very commonly used. All these verbs are followed by the preposition di when there is another verb coming afterwards. And now stay tuned, stick around for another few seconds so that you can see the list of all the verbs that I have not mentioned, but they're still followed by the preposition di. And especially if you're a more advanced learner, you might want to stick around so that you can have a look at more words. You can expand your vocabulary. You can start using maybe one or two new words in creating sentences. I will provide you with the list of the verbs that I've not mentioned so far and their correspective English meaning. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Leave a comment in the comment section below. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time. Ciao, a presto!